Looks like it's going to be a nice day. It's Wednesday, April 1st, 2020. It's episode 375, and you have locked into We Live on a Planet. I am your host, Patrick. Thank you for joining me. Chilly here in the city of Oswego. It's 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Feels like 32. Highs are going to be about 44 degrees Fahrenheit today. Winds are out of the northeast, 7 miles per hour. I'm glad you're joining me, and it is April Fool's, so let's April Fool's joke. Let's think of one. Did you hear about the restaurant on the moon? Yeah, great food, no atmosphere. So stupid. Okay, we got a good show. This is different. This is Wednesdays. Wednesday is something new that I'm going to be doing. These are going to be interview/conversation, and today's one to start off for April 1st is going to be with Josh McClay from O'Malley's Media, LLC. And so picture, if you will. Do we have any picture, if you will, and anything for that that's going to make me feel like nothing? Picture, if you will. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Picture, if you will. A live show, because that's what this was. Josh and I did like a dual interview. He does YouTube and Facebook live streaming. And so when we recorded this, I was a guest on his podcast. And I thought to myself, well, let's try to do this something different. Well, I'm a guest on your podcast. I'll record via Anchor and we'll have it up together. So keep in mind when you get ready to listen to this that I don't edit. But what I did was this was my first time to use the editing tool through Anchor. And I edited I took off the very beginning because him and I were just shooting the breeze before we started the recording. And so since it is live over on his end, when we're doing it, he will say the stream will be up live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then there's about 8 seconds of dead space. So just remember that when you listen, this 8 seconds of dead space before our interview starts is because he is playing his intro music over on his end live and we can't hear it. So don't fret if you hear that 8 seconds. It's normal. Well, it shouldn't be normal. I just didn't know how to edit it to get that. I couldn't do that 8 seconds. So the other day, Monday's show, on this day of history, we were talking about how Ronald Reagan had been shot, and it was 1981. And John Hinckley Jr. was obsessed with a certain actress, and I couldn't remember her name, but luckily, one of my listeners out in Colorado, Todd, thank you, Todd, for listening. You and your family got a hold of me and said to me, you know who it was? It was Jodie Foster. And I'm like, oh, thank you, because that was driving me crazy. So I thought we would do a quote from Jodie Foster. Might as well before we launched the interview episode. And it's about 56 minutes of him and I just kind of shooting the breeze. We talk, Anchor 2.0 talk from the early days of Anchor, YouTube, a little bit of YouTube talk, some addiction and recovery and the change it's brought our life. You'll hear in mental health, also, we talk about mental health and breaking the stigma. You will hear a dog barking because as we're doing the interview is going great. And then on his end, since I said we were live and he was live streaming, his dog ended up barking some. So it just means his dog decided he wanted to be a part of the show too. It works out perfect though, because in the interview, I say how I had listened to Mark Maron, and he's a podcaster, and things happen when you're recording live. And so it's just part of the recording. It makes it magical, I think. And I don't know, we talk all kinds of stuff on it. So to our quote from Jodie Foster: normal is not something to aspire to. It's something to get away from. And I'm not normal, that's for sure. So try not to be normal. All right, stick around, grab yourself a beverage of choice, and just enjoy this conversation I had with Josh. Oh, one other side note, it was live. He's in a different state, and I don't want you to think I'm being rude to him, but there's times it sounds like I'm over talking him because there's a delay. And it's very, very slight. It doesn't make the interview not listenable. There's just times where such a tiny, tiny, tiny delay that there's times that I almost seem like I'm interrupting him, but I get excited too. So if you know me in real life, maybe you'll be like, Patrick, that's the way you really are, though. So, but there is a little bit of a delay, and so once again, thanks, Todd. I appreciate you calling in. Stick around. We're gonna launch this new interview. I'm so excited. Are you? Here we go.
Stream is up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And welcome to O'Malley Live on this, the 24th day of March, 2020. I want to thank everybody for joining, whether you're watching live or in post. The number to contact the show is 234-650-4920, or you can email us at o'malley'sadventure@yahoo.com. This episode of O'Malley Live is brought to you in part by the Tremont Coffee Company for all of your hot and cold brewing needs. Check out the Tremont Coffee Company at 215 North Erie, Massillon, Ohio, Tigertown, USA. Today on the show via Anchor, I have the voice of We Live on a Planet, Patrick Orton. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, this didn't quite come off the way that we wanted to, but it's gonna. I think it's going to work this way.
It was a good learning experience for both of us on our end, I think.
Yeah. The Skype thing needs some tweaking. I can see why people switch to what's the other one? Zoom. I think Zoom's the other sort of face-to-face type software. But anyway,
yeah, I've heard quite a bit about Zoom and Zoom meetings.
Right. We'll have to maybe work that one out because, and the reason that I say that is I'm going to actually use that into my little segue as far as the first time I heard you on Anchor FM and what I thought Anchor was at the time. When I first come across Anchor, I was like, wow, this is really neat. It's a place where everybody can have a podcast. All you had to do really was have a phone. And at that time, you were just coming off doing your Walmart interviews. And so I was listening to you, Nick Diaz, and Maria Humphrey.
Right? Yes.
And I thought to myself, I get it now, because these people obviously work in radio and they're making transition to something that's digital. Because right. Especially you and Nick, I've let a couple people listen to your podcast. I was like, man, check these people out. And then I found out you never worked a day of radio in your life.
Never.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So no, that's the story. I don't know if I was so much let down or I thought, no, man, this cat's got to be lying. He works in radio and you don't want to get caught.
Right. You know, it's funny though, because I had a lot of feelings about Anchor when I first stumbled upon it, and I stumbled upon it just by chance myself. I was going through the app store and I saw an app that it said Radio Reinvented, Anchor.fm, and radio for the people, by the people, and make a podcast. But I was intrigued by the radio part because I grew up in the 70s. I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, and DJs were really hip and cool, and shows like WKRP in Cincinnati. And so you wanted to be a DJ and you wanted to call in and be featured on that DJ show, and you appreciated DJs. And so I was intrigued by that. And they were really different, which, when Anchor first came out, you could only do 5-minute segments, and then it would just dissolve. And so I don't know. I just kind of went in thinking I was doing a radio show, and I pushed it that way for a while, even though my first podcast was about self-driving cars.
Right. Right.
Which is a train wreck. Our first podcasts are always, we look back at them and go, it's almost like if you're an artist and your first painting or your first sculpture, you're your worst enemy. Anyways, I think we all are.
You're definitely our own worst critic. My first 3 videos that I uploaded in September of 2016 to YouTube, I made the mistake of watching them. They were up for maybe a week, and I pulled all 3 of them down. So, yeah, it's a humbling experience. One, I'm terrified of being on camera, and 2, I'm not the greatest public speaker. And
you seem to be doing fine. When I found O'Malley's Adventure, O'Malley's Media time, you're still, I think, do you still go under O'Malley's Adventure or O'Malley's Media?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. I had O'Malley's Adventure, and I was just going to do like backpacking and gear reviews and stuff like that.
Right.
And what ended up happening was, I believe it was in mid 2018, I said, I'm going to go live once a day, every day for a year.
Ooh.
Well, when I started doing the whole O'Malley Live every evening, I realized maybe for the first 4 or 5 days it was easy because there's a lot to talk about. Well, then I incorporated one article from this day in history. I actually borrowed that from your podcast.
Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah. So what I tried to do is I tried to have like a main talking point, this day in history, and sometimes I would throw in a meme of the day if I saw something that was really funny. And I tried to keep it at 10 or 12 minutes or less. And after I'd done that, we were running towards the election cycle, so I started having people on my show that we were discussing local issues, but I kept doing it under the O'Malley's Adventure YouTube channel. So what happened was, when things started to get political, and I'm working my actual day job is I work for the city, the same people that I'm interviewing, I realized we better make some changes, and that's when I started O'Malley's Media, and I filed for an LLC, and I got insured. And
oh, good for you.
So right now, what I'm trying to do is make the transition to where, like, these interviews are going to be on the O'Malley's Media YouTube channel and Facebook page, and then all the fun stuff like the hiking at Hocking Hills and the coffee reviews that I'm working on now, those are all going to be on O'Malley's Adventure. And I'm going to try to separate them, because right now, if you try to navigate either of those YouTube channels, it's like navigating a yard sale.
I finally got the courage to put a YouTube channel up myself, and it's like, if you type in "We Live on a Planet," it doesn't pop right up as a channel, so it's buried in there, and it's a train wreck, but I got to start somewhere.
Sure. Well, that, and over the course of time, what I noticed is nobody found my channel until I hit like 100 subscribers. And then once I hit 100 subs, then it kind of came 50-50. My channel's, if you're not subscribed and you look up O'Malley's Adventure or O'Malley's Media, I'm still on page like 3 to 5 on the search.
Oh, wow.
So, but no, I think it's good. I think with the way that social media is set up now, especially with Anchor, if you do something that is like what you do, that is perfect, because they do all the circulating for you.
Yeah.
So
Anchor's been good to me. Anchor's really been good, because they they had me featured on their homepage when you first open up their app in the listen and learn section that they had. I was featured, and I was rubbing elbows with some names, and so they've been really good to me, and they helped me get a name throughout myself, because We Live on a Planet's just been totally organic, except for the recent My Bag initiative. But other than that, it's been an organic.
Right. You know, and I was going to say, that's one of the things that sort of puts yours different. The other people that I see or listen to, they don't quite have that type of reach. Like most people, their content is very topic oriented, and that's it.
Right.
But yours has a little bit of merchandise. A little bit later, we can talk about Carpe
Sure.
if you want.
Yeah, I would love to.
You yours sort of took off in a lot of different ways than most podcasts go.
Yeah.
Which sort of has my attention. That's an interesting, because usually you have to go looking for sponsors,
Right.
and sometimes they come to you in different types of ways.
Right. And you and I are doing something a little different in this game of podcasting anyways, that we're one-man shows, and that's really kind of a rarity in the podcasting game. If most podcasts that or that are popular, it's not usually a one-man show, or they're very interview based driven, but it's usually two people. So to be running your own show and doing it yourself is tricky, but it's also rewarding because you're in control of every aspect of the show.
Absolutely. It's almost like old school talk radio.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a fan of
very,
that.
very similar.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons that I started listening to things on Anchor. Is I'm a huge talk radio fan.
Yeah,
well,
too.
Talk radio sort of, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but a lot of the names started to retire, and people that I listened to, and it just kind of went away.
Yeah,
for lack of better words. But so let's talk about your journey through Anchor, and a couple of the topics that you discuss.
Sure.
On a somewhat regular basis. Let's talk about a little bit about mental health.
Yeah.
And how that sort of plays a part in what you're doing, in your reach and your message.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I just recently, later on in my life, started becoming more comfortable to talk about. I held it really tight to my chest, was embarrassed about it. The stigma behind mental health illness is there still, unless you're a star or somebody famous. It's the stigma's still there. So I recently decided maybe I don't know how many episodes into my show that I decided to talk about that. And once I did, I felt really freed about talking about it, because it does take away that stigma of it, or it lets people say, hey, I'm not the only one. Because when I was about 25 years old, I was diagnosed as having bipolar. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. The doctor had to explain to me. He goes, well, you heard of manic depressive? I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. And he goes, well, we're calling it bipolar now. And I'm like, okay. And so I felt at least relieved, because now I knew I wasn't quote unquote crazy. There was some chemical imbalance going on with me. And so it could be treated. And then the long journey began, and the years of struggling, and then abuse of substances and all that stuff. But what Anchor has given me now is that ability of that talk therapy that I really get, and being able to communicate on this world scale that I have is a really good thing, because when I'm talking on We Live on a Planet, I'm talking to one person. Even though my audience is large, it's one person I'm trying to reach always with We Live on a Planet. And so it's brought to me a lot of solace, in the sense of I can talk about it and not have that shame like I used to.
Right.
Here we go, boy.
So
Wants a treat.
Oh my, the one dog's name is Penny.
Yeah.
And we say that the reason that her name is Penny is because she don't have enough sense to be called quarter, nickel, or dime.
I was listening to an interview today on NPR, and it was with Mark Maron, who has WTF is the name of his podcast. It's world famous. And he does his podcasting from home. Most podcasters that have a name do, unless they're like Joe Rogan. And he talked about what's happening right now, how the dog is barking in the background and all that stuff. That is a part of life, though. That's part of what's going to happen sometimes, I think, more in the future of people working from home with this pandemic that's here. Because you're going to find people, famous radio people, are going to be staying home. Like, take for example Sirius Radio XM, Sirius XM. Those DJs are working from home. They're not in some studio someplace. And so to work from home in a podcast setting gives you that freedom, because you're in that familiar setting of what is yours and what you know. And there's going to be sometimes a sound of a cat in the background, or the dog saying, "Hey dad, notice me." And that's just what makes everything perfect. And that's what I love about my podcast, not to boast about it, but I do it on the fly, in the sense of it's one and done. And if a dog is barking in the background, that's great. That's not going to get edited out, because I don't edit my life, and I shouldn't try to do it when I'm doing something that is for enjoyment as well, because this is supposed to be for enjoyment.
Right. I'm going to borrow that quote.
Yeah.
I don't edit my life.
Yeah.
That's
we would love to. We do in a social media sense, in that little, tie it up in a little bow and look at how everything perfect is on social media, but that's not true. And when you see that, that should raise some red herrings to people. And it does with me when I see, those perfect little lifestyles. It's like, it's not perfect, and we're humans, and we have faults, and we make mistakes, and we fall down, and even the best of us, it's just, do you get back up?
Right. So you touched a little bit on substance abuse with being bipolar.
Yeah.
Did one lead to the other? As far as
I started that was my joke. I was trying to be funny. No, I started using at a really young age. My audience knows that listen, but your audience doesn't. And so yeah, I started at about 13 or 14. I can remember starting to smoke cigarettes, and I had older cousins and stuff, and some older brothers, and was getting into my parents' liquor cabinet at a fairly young age. So I think that even then I was undiagnosed until I was older. So I just would self-medicate. And then when college hit, when I was in college, I really started putting the hammer down on self-medicating, and, experimenting with acid, and, you name it, I tried it. I was one of those guys that, yeah, give it to me more. And if they're like, "Oh, this stuff's really strong," I'm like, perfect. And so I've always been a risk taker, always wanted to kind of live on the edge. And so those went hand in hand. And then my substance of choice was alcohol. I had tried everything, but it became just alcohol, and it was beer. And I was that Irish guy, and I thought that was my job, was to be the drunk in the family, that happy Irish drunk. And I filled that role, and thought that was the role that was supposed to be for me, until a little over 4 years ago, I decided to check myself into rehab and said enough was enough. So, yeah.
My story is similar, but it had a different way that it sort of manifested itself as far as that went. When I was in my early 20s, college hoops was my thing. March Madness, betting on basketball, and I didn't get it at the time. I was one of those people that had problems with things and never seen it as a problem until something really bad happened,
Right.
you know, and it was like, oh man, that didn't work out so well. And so, but mine ended with with alcohol, and I've had 5 years, 10 months, and 14 days worth of
Wow.
sobriety. Um, but with mine, my addiction, my addiction, uh, it, it 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 would manifest itself very
Yeah.
quickly. Like with gambling, gambling was maybe 3 or 4 years
Wow.
tops. Um, drinking was 3 years, and believe me when I say this, the road of excess leading to the path of wisdom is not a shortcut. It is not.
Yeah.
And that's the one that one, it almost took me out. And every day that I look at the green side of the grass is a pure blessing, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
I can
Um,
relate to that feeling of sobriety. Sobriety is, it's a gift. It's something that you have to work at. I like that, which you've heard since you're sober longer than I have. So you've heard all the old timers talk, and I appreciate you sharing that too as well. But I want to say you've heard this analogy probably. Sobriety's never owned, it's rented, and rent is due every day.
oh
Yeah.
yes, oh,
And that's true. It really
and
is, because, here I am, my 4.5 or a little over 4 years, and you've got your 5 years, but you and I know that we have that in us. So if we pick up and drink, we're still an alcoholic. Just because we don't drink doesn't mean we're not an alcoholic. And it's just like being
right,
a smoker. That's something I battled with, and I thought that giving up smoking is harder than anything I've ever done. And I know if I decide to pick up and just take one drag of somebody's cigarette, then I've made that conscious choice to become a smoker again, because that's all it's going to
right,
take. And I know that with drinking as well. So I haven't even fallen off at all, knock on wood. I haven't had to touch my lips, because I know myself, like you said, that addictive personality that we both seem to have. I would go in
yes,
harder, my friend. I would go in harder.
right. Well, they say that just because you go into rehab and you become sober, they say that, let's say that you have 2 years or so of sobriety, that if you would fall off the wagon, you will pick up where you left off. There's no your brain won't see any difference,
Exactly.
and that's what makes falling off the wagon devastating for most people, because you have zero tolerance after a couple years, and if you go back to drinking like you did before you went in the tank,
Yeah.
you're gonna have some big problems.
Yeah. Well, I was shaken. I
So
got to the point where I had to drink in the morning because I was so shaky, and I started hiding it from my wife. And nobody told me to stop drinking. I decided to go to rehab myself. I had that epiphany. So it wasn't a judge, it wasn't somebody, but I started hiding it, and I never hid it. I never had shame. I always, oh great, today's the day to barbecue, because barbecuing means I can drink more. And so, but what happened in the morning times is my wife would work nights, and she would be sleeping still, and I would get up, I would go out to the back porch, crack a beer, open it, and leave it out there. And at the time I was still smoking. So when I would hear her rising up, I would like, oh, time to get a cup of coffee. So I'd get a cup of coffee for one. When she'd come down, she'd have her coffee. I'd go outside to have my cigarette, which I was having, still smoking. And I had my beer right to the side. And so I'd have my coffee where she could see my coffee, but I would be glancing over where she couldn't see me and chugging my beer as quick as I could so I wouldn't shake anymore. And I'm like, wow, something's real. I was always able to handle this, and now there's something really spiraling out of control. And so yeah,
right,
it was enough for me. I was like, and then I was frightened because they said that might not go away.
right,
That might not go
and
away.
yeah, right, and with mine, I I don't think I ever got to a point where I hit it. I was at a point in life where I was just going to do it and damn the consequences. I didn't, wasn't very bashful about it.
Right.
But with mine, I come home to an empty house.
Ooh.
And that's when I was like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
something's, something's got to change.
Yeah,
And,
that'll wake you up real quick, my friend.
yeah, it was, you know, I'm able to laugh about it now. But I can tell you at the time, it was not a good place to be.
No.
But sometimes that has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that
To,
everybody needs a rock bottom or something to wake you up.
because, well, you know, and unfortunately, some people, their rock bottom is they die.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that was one thing that I to me was odd. Um, when I was in rehab, there were people there that um, they did not want to live anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one thing I don't, if I thought it, I don't remember it. Because to me, that's like quitting. And one of my double-edged sword personality traits is I'm incredibly competitive.
Right.
And I don't lose. That's in my head. If I'm going like through life, I don't think I've ever had a day where I was depressed. I don't know what that is.
You're lucky, my friend, because I'll tell you, that's been a bane of my existence. That's put me on a psych ward more than once. And that's something that is a really hard thing to even say right now. I mean, I haven't talked to many people about that, but my audience knows, but yours once again doesn't. But being on a psych ward is a very, very humbling experience. It's very One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest ish.
Yeah.
It's, you get treated nowadays, it's very, you feel like you're a criminal. It's been years since I've stepped foot in one, but the last time I felt very like I had done something wrong. I didn't feel like a patient. I felt like a inmate. And it's hard, but I've been depressed more than once, and that's the part about bipolar depression. It can come on real strong, and once you have it, that thought of suicidal thoughts or not wanting to live are strong. And I've been there, and those are some dark days, and it's a scary, terrible place to be. And some people just can't relate to that. They are just like, no, I don't give up, I don't this, I don't that, and they can't understand. And it is a scary, dark place. And it's a place I hope I never have to go again, because it's bad. It's bad.
Right. Well, and that's what through, you know, talking with your groups and whatnot, um, it, it almost acted as a scare me straight type of thing, because in my head, I'm like, okay, everybody in here is saying the same thing. I'm not there yet.
Right.
So it just, I'm kind of glad in a way that I got to hear those people's story.
Yeah, I think that's important. And everybody's bottom is different too, because people will try to compare, and they'll be like, well, that wasn't me, or that didn't happen to me, or I don't feel that way. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. Trying to compare those type of stories is hard, but when you can sit in a group like you did and get something out of it, that's when all of a sudden it's important. That's when all of a sudden it's like, yeah, because I've been on, for an example, I think my first time on a psych ward, I all of a sudden I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm not like these people. There is nothing wrong with me, because I saw some guy take a biscuit off his tray, throw it on the ground, and start yelling at it and talking to it. And it scared me. And it was like, I am not there. And my nurse and doctor had to explain, they're like, you might not be like that guy, but you still need to be here right now because you're sick and there's some issues that we need to take care of. And you're in a deep depression, and we can treat it with meds. And so it's hard to be in places like that to compare, but sometimes those are what you need too, to be that aha or an opening.
Yeah. So the last topic I wanted to actually
Sure.
discuss was something that happened here recently, with you had a car
I
accident.
did, March 17th of last year, and it was horrific. It was a terrible, terrible car accident. I was with my father. I had just come back from visiting my older brother, and my father's older. He's in his late 70s. And we were a rock throw from his house, a house I grew up in. And we were heading northbound. There was a car in the southbound lane that had stopped, getting ready to turn into their driveway. A car behind them stopped, and then a truck coming, and he didn't stop. And instead of taking his truck into the ditch, he took it into me. And I was going about 50, 55, and he was going the same. So I saw it right
Wow.
at the split last second, and I was able to yank the wheel. So it wasn't 100% head on, but it was pretty darn close. It took about an hour to cut me out of the car. So I was trapped. I
Holy
was
cow.
trapped. And that was a terrifying feeling, to be trapped and then to be put into a hospital for almost a month. I was really afraid that my depression would come on. And so I was able to treat myself there with medication. So that didn't stop. And then I also saw a doctor while I was in there, a therapist, because it was a very traumatic thing. I almost died, and then I was worried about my dad. He ended up being able to get out of the car, but he almost lost his eye. He had a cut over his eye that could have taken his eye out, and then come to find out he had a compression fracture in his back. With me,
Oh, wow.
I broke. Oh my goodness, I had never broken a bone in my body. I had just turned 49. I just turned 50 a couple days ago, March 16th, but I had just turned 49, and I had never broken a bone in my body. And I broke my leg, my ribs, my hand, my clavicle, my sternum. I punctured a lung. Yeah, I had to have a chest tube. It was bad. It was a bad situation. But I'm
Wow.
surprised I've made such a wonderful recovery from being in a wheelchair to sleeping in a hospital bed down in my house to now being able to walk. And being in a wheelchair too really opens up your eyes of things you take for granted. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really made me look at my life a lot different. I'm 50 now. I almost, I had that, and now I'm really trying to not hate myself for the things I've done before, but love myself for the things I have done and who I am, because I've been really down on myself for too many years and have a really low self-esteem. And people don't believe that. They like, no, you seem like this and you're this. And it's like years and years of experience of masking this,
Sure.
and it's years and years of just fitting in, but it's always been a struggle. And so now I've been just peeling back these layers of the onion more and more. And the more I do it, the more free I feel.
Yeah. So, um, total, how long were you out of commission after the
Oh,
accident? Almost a year?
months. Yeah, months and months.
Months?
Months of rehab. Um, months of rehab. Almost a month in the hospital. I still, like, just the other day I had to put a one of those lidocaine patches on my knee where I broke my leg, because it's still kind of, when the weather, we had snow here in Oswego the other day. And so I'm my collarbone where it's broke, they didn't do surgery on it, so I got a big, you can see the lump of the bone,
Right.
where it's broke. And so, but I'm getting there. I would feel that I would say I'm probably 99% compared to where I was. I'll never be 100% from this accident ever, ever, because I'll always feel the effects from it.
Right. How much hardware did you get as far as pins and
None,
screws
none,
and
believe it or not. But I do have pins and screws in me. In 2012, I had back surgery. I blew out my lower back when I was younger, and I had years of just back problems. And in 2012, I ruptured a couple discs and they popped. And so I had to have major, major back surgery. And that was almost 10 days in the hospital after that surgery. But I have 6 screws and 2 rods. And so right after the surgery, or after the accident, I was terrified that all of a sudden this
right?
surgery that has been a godsend and I needed it, And it, when they scanned my body after my car accident, they said that all my hardware was in place and nothing had moved. And so I was very, very fortunate. But yeah, no surgeries after this accident and no pins or rods or anything. So I, even though I busted myself all up good, I got lucky in the sense of no surgeries. I did have to have surgery on my hand to remove glass, and that was like
Oh, wow.
2 months after the surgery. Glass had come to the surface that was impacted so deep into my hand, and it came out to the top of my hand, and it was a big chunk of glass that had been in there since the accident.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad.
So the doctor that did your back surgery done a fantastic
Yeah,
job.
and I have heard horror stories from people that have had back surgery. They're like, don't do it, whatever you do. But I was in a place where I had no other choice. I went and saw a specialist, and he said, I can't help you. And I was in tears. I was like, what do you mean you can't help me? And he goes, no, what you need is extensive. I only do a certain type of surgery. What you need, and my surgery for my back was about 4 hours. Yeah,
Wow.
and then I had to wear a bone stimulator for a year, for 3 hours a day. And what it does is it works on the cellular level, tricking your body to thinking that you have a fresh break, and it releases the whatever to be fixing your back. So they took
Wow.
my old disc that was busted, made like a paste out of it, and packed that all in, and then mesh. There's mesh. It's pretty amazing what they can do nowadays. Really amazing.
Huh. Because that's one of the reasons I haven't had mine fixed yet. I've sort of a similar story. I broke my L2 when I was in high school,
Ouch.
and nobody has given. I've had back pain ever
Yeah.
since, and none of the doctors. I was like, so what kind of percentage are you going to give me as far as you know recovery, and what will I be like afterwards? And they're like, well, you're probably looking at 60%, and that's one doctor, and another doctor's gone as high as 85. And I'm thinking, you know what? I've dealt with it this long. When those numbers get a little bit higher,
Yeah.
I'll be a little more confident, because I don't want to. There's too many things I got left as far as my to-do
Yeah.
list, and having a back is a big piece of that. I have to have that.
I got lucky too, because being that I have an addictive personality, I'm very fortunate though that I didn't get hooked on any pain meds or anything, because my back was so bad at a nerve level. It was nerve pain because my sciatica was so badly pinched that no pain pills helped anyways. And so I
Oh
hated
my.
taking pain meds because they make my nose itch and all that stuff. So I've
Right,
tried a lot of,
right.
like I said, a lot of drugs in my life, and I'm glad that those were never one of my things, because I was fearful in the back of my mind going, I hope that I don't get hooked on anything. And I remember not too long after my back surgery taking the narcotics I had and getting rid of them. I didn't need them anymore. I just didn't even need them. So I was like, there's no sense I even having them. And so I got very lucky with that. And that didn't mean I stopped drinking. I drank more and more and more, but at least I didn't get hooked on narcs or anything.
Right, right. No, that was one of the most um probably the scariest story that I think I heard in rehab was a guy had 22 years
Oh,
sobriety, and he broke his hip, and sure enough he got hooked on the
yeah.
pain pills.
And those are bad.
And yeah, and that's how he ended up in there. And I was like, to have that much time, you know and to get sort of sideswiped like that it didn't seem right, but it can
Yeah,
happen,
I
you know.
know it can happen.
So
It can happen and blindside you quickly. And there's a couple of people I went to rehab with that are no longer with us. The addiction took them. And I
yeah,
lived with, when I was in Southern California at rehab, and it was a house of like 12 or 13 of us, depending on who was going home that day or not. And these guys were all younger. I was the old dude in the house, and Some of them are just not here, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah. It doesn't discriminate.
No. Just like
It
coronavirus,
does
and
not
that's like the
discriminate.
virus.
Right.
We're talking how much that's going to
Right.
change things, and I really think that's going to change a lot in our society, of a lot of societal shifts.
Right. You know, because, well, like you said, before we got started, we were talking about people
Yeah,
shaking hands. You could quickly see that become a thing of
I really
the
think
past.
it could, because there are cultures right now where they do not shake hands. You know, they just don't, and that's in their culture. And so, right now, you might have some listeners that going, "Are you guys? I thought you said you're not using anymore. That sounds psychotic. That sounds like you're using something." We're not using, but the
Right.
theory of what we were talking about before your listeners and my listeners came on was, I think that maybe we'll have a societal shift where maybe babies that are born right now will never shake a hand, because they'll just be that. And they'll hear
Right.
stories about their grandparents or their parents maybe shaking hands, and they'll say, ew. So when you came up to a stranger that you have never met, that's how you greeted them. You'd reach out and touch their hand. How do you know where they've been? Well, you didn't. That's just culture. That's how you said hello. Well, that doesn't sound very brilliant. And I think it will be like one of those aha. And it's
Right.
like, you know what, people can carry, there's living things on us as we speak. You know, we have, that's part of a human. We have microbials and germs. And so I think that maybe that will be a shift where people just don't. And I also think working from home with jobs that do allow it, bigger corporations or other jobs are going to see that they can still get things done with people working from home. And so now you're going to have people working from home more than not, and being able to spend maybe more time with their family and their loved ones, and not having as much
Yeah.
greenhouse emissions because you're not on the roads as much. And so there'll be a little bit of change. With bad things, good things can come, you know. And I'm that type of guy where I always try to look at a bad situation and see what could possibly good come out of it, you know.
Right. Well, we got notified Sunday that we were going to be off work for 2 weeks. So this is my actual second day of
Right.
being home. And so with the YouTube channels and editing video and whatnot, I thought, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity, you know, to get caught up on some things that I
Yeah.
want to do. And I understand now why I'm not meant 100% for a desk job. I drink way too
Me
much
too.
coffee, and just sitting and looking at a screen. I have to get up and move around sometimes because um, I'm very claustrophobic to
Mm-hmm.
begin with. And as much as I like my studio and the things I got, like the decorations and whatnot, I have to come out of this thing once in a
Yeah.
while. So, but I can see, not just from myself working from home these
I
past
lost
couple
you there
days,
just for a second. Say
but
what you just said. We got caught in the echo of the, yeah, say one more time.
oh, okay. Well, um, what I've learned, you know, and seen, not just myself working from home, but other people, I can see
Yeah.
that being
Yeah.
a huge trend. I mean, a lot of, I mean, even you take the medical field, right? Unless it's something where a doctor actually has to, let's say, x-ray a broken bone or whatnot, a lot of uh, doctor's appointments could be
Yeah.
done
Oh yeah. It's
through
funny you say that.
webcams,
I have a meeting
you
with
know.
my therapist this Thursday, and it's telecall, because they're saying don't come into the mental health facility. Your therapist will call you on your phone. So I have my upcoming therapy meeting ever on a phone with somebody. So that will be different. I don't know if we're doing Skype or if it's just a phone call. So yeah, it's happening, and this could
Right.
be the future, maybe, of always, even after this pandemic dies down. It could be always where, because if I can still be able to talk to him and get value, I'd much rather do that than jump in my car and drive a city over from where I live to go see this guy, to jump back over to drive my car to drive back. If I can do it right on my phone, I might as well.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
far
already,
more
there's
efficient
too
way of
much
doing it.
emissions that we're putting out in this planet that I live on anyways, that we both live on, that we all live on.
With that, and look at just in time,
Mm-hmm.
how much time could be saved. When I was younger and my kids were young, I
Right.
was very frugal with money. And now that I'm not going to use the word old. I'm going to
Right.
say now that I'm older, I'm far
Yes.
more frugal with my time because I know
Right.
that I don't
Yeah.
have as
Yeah.
much
And
of
it's
that
funny, the
left.
older we get, the quicker time does go as well. It really does, because,
Mm-hmm.
and my father would say, "Oh, enjoy it now because it's gonna." You're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, time dead, whatever." And now it's like it's already March is almost over, and it's 2020.
Yep.
No, I just got out of high school, and it's like,
Right.
yeah, 30 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I'm coming up on
Okay.
that. I just turned 47. So yeah, it's weird because things that happened, let's say
Yeah.
in 2005,
Hmm.
in your head you're thinking, man, that's a few years ago. No, man, that was
Yeah.
15 years
It
ago.
is, and that happens to me a
But
lot. I don't know what 50 is supposed to feel like or be, and I don't know. You almost are like waiting for something, I guess, of like, now what's next?
yeah, but
Yeah.
all joking aside, looking at what you've done with We Live
Yeah.
on a Planet just in the past couple of years, um, as much as we see our age as far as time, I mean that's a
It
brand
is.
new
It's a chapter I'm loving
chapter.
writing right
I
now. I
mean,
really am.
so when I see things like that, that's only 2 years old. Regardless
Yeah.
of your actual age, that's only 2 years old. And I start looking at things
Yeah.
more
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
regard,
I get what you're saying. I like that concept of thinking.
because well, I've worked for the road crew here in the town that I live in for 24 years. I'll have
Congratulations.
24 years in July, you know, and I was thinking to
Right.
event that's going to come to an end. I have friends that have stayed well past the time that they could have retired. That's not going to be me. That is not going to be my first eligible day to retire. I'm gone. And that following day, I will move on to something else. That's I don't see me hanging around. You know, we had a guy that worked. Uh, I believe he was on the road crew for 51 years. And in my head, I'm like, why aren't
Yeah.
you retiring? You
Exactly.
could have retired twice. So, but no, man, a great conversation. That's all I have as far as
Groovy. We
things
could maybe
that I
next
wanted to
time talk about
discuss.
carpe. I'll tell you that story.
It Oh yeah, you know what? Damn, I wanted to talk about that because that's sort of a
That's going to be a whole new
cool story in
chapter right now
itself.
that is being written in my life that I am so super excited about, and it's going to open up a lot of things for me. I think in the voice communicational type things, I'm really hoping for. I'm wishing, I'm putting it out in the universe that it does happen.
Right. Well, we've been up live on
Wow.
this end for a little over 50 minutes. Do we want to do we want to set up and
I
do
can tell
another
you
one, or
real
do we
quick,
want to talk about carpe now?
if you want to if your listeners want to hear, and my
Sure.
listeners have heard it before, but yours haven't. I had the opportunity. I have hyperhidrosis, which is just excessive sweating. You sweat a lot, and I've been this way my whole life, and I've tried every product that you can get. My wife saw this stuff called Carpe. It's like seize the day Carpe, like Carpe Diem, CARPE. She got it for me, and I tried it, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Are you kidding me? This stuff works! I can't believe it. My pits are not soaked. I can't believe this, And so I was like, well, what am I going to do? I posted a picture of
Right.
the product saying, I hope this works. Fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes. on Instagram. And then Carpe started following me. And I was like, oh, let's take a look. They've got like 80,000 followers, but they're only found about 500. And I was like intrigued by that. So I started thinking a lot about him. And then my brain went into We Live on a Planet mode. And I was like, hey, maybe I could get them come on and do an ad on my podcast because I really like the product. And then I thought about it all night, went to bed. And when I woke up, I was thinking about Carpe again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to message them, but I'm not going to ask them to do a commercial. I'm just going to tell them how much I like their product and thank them for making something that finally works, that I can wear whatever shirt I want. So I messaged them on Instagram, told them about it, and they messaged me right back and said, this is great. We'd love to hear that. Would you be interested in coming and shooting a testimonial / commercial in our studios here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina? And I was like, yes, I would. And they go, great. What's your schedule? And what's your airport of choice that you'd like to fly out? And we'll fly you out here and shoot a commercial. Yeah. And so I flew out there to Chapel Hill, met with them, the two CEOs, and then the head of the PR, shot the testimonial commercial. And then they took me out to lunch and we just kind of talked. And I told them how I would love to be their voice of Carpe on radio. And they seemed really down for it. And they said, yeah. And then I asked them if they would like to be on my podcast. And they said, absolutely. And they're down for that. And they just fired up a podcast the other day on Anchor. And so I'm excited. They took my advice and now I'm going to interview with them. But their commercial that they have coming out that I'm in is, I said to the kid after we got done shooting, and I say kids because these guys are CEOs of this company, but they're only 25-year-old guys. Yeah. So I think that's the reason why I wasn't nervous either, because they're not my peers. I have a 33-year-old and a 25-year-old. And so, well, soon to be 25. So when I met these guys, I wasn't really nervous. I was more just in dad mode and said, hey, I'm your guy. You guys don't realize it, but I'm here, a Carpe guy. Here I am. You've been waiting for me. Here I am. And it was awesome. And so I'm going to have them on my podcast. But I said to him after we did the commercial, I said, wow, this was great. It's going to freak me out to see it on commercial on TV because I've already seen your commercials on late at night. And he laughed. I said, well, you got to start somewhere. They're late at night. He goes, yeah, well, you'll really freak out when you see it on the Super Bowl. And I laughed and he goes, oh no, I'm serious. Our plans are February 2021. Our plans are to have a spot for the Super Bowl. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And they just wow. Secured a little over $6 million from investors and stuff. So they've been around since 2015. They're really going to start making a name for themselves because the product works and they have other things besides underarm. They have it for hands. So if your hands sweat a lot, you can get it for your hands. And if your thighs or your, they have it for your face. So yeah, I'm really excited and something's going to come out of this, I think. And if something doesn't come out, just this commercial, nobody can take away this experience that I had. And it was fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. They flew me there.
They flew you there.
They told me on the way back, they're like, hey, whatever expenses in the airport, if you eat, if you drink, anything like that, just keep your receipt. We'll take care of everything. We'll take care of it all. But I didn't take them up on that because I don't drink for one anymore, which is awesome. And I didn't want to buy airport food because it's expensive. And just because I'm on their dime, I'm not that type of guy. It's just not me. It's just not that's not how I roll.
Right.
So they had already taken me out to lunch. And they flew me out there. I wasn't going to do that, but I thought it was a great experience. They're great, intelligent group of people and a great company. They were fun. I went into their office and it was a really nice office, but as I'm walking in, I'm got to careful where I walk because I'm walking on Nerf darts because they got in a Nerf war in their office. Yeah. So it's one of those cool hip companies, It was fantastic, my friend. I wouldn't have changed a thing. And you know how sometimes you do something, you're like, man, I should have done this or I should have done this. I wouldn't have changed anything. It was weird though to be in front of camera. We talked about that at the beginning of this interview. You said how it is to be live and how you're working on it. And I was nervous, but they said, you don't seem nervous at all. And I'm like, oh, good, because I'm used to being in front of a microphone, but to be in front of a camera, that's a whole nother animal. It was a blast.
Right. But that's cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm not a big, there's a lot of people get into the Super Bowl commercials and whatnot, and I'm not really big on that.
I know.
This coming year, awesome. I'm gonna check it out.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it would.
Thank you. Yeah, so, thank you. This was a blast.
We've been up an hour. We have been.
Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna have to do this again. Sometimes I had a friend of mine that was on, and we were talking. I believe we were actually talking about the road department in Massillon, where I work, and he emailed me a few documents and some ideas and whatnot. He goes, "Do you think this is enough for a show?" And I said, "You don't understand. Once you hit that go live button and you're actually engaged in a conversation with somebody,
yeah,
it's like a black hole. It does not take long.
That's true.
To get past an hour. It just don't." So, anyway,
thank you.
It was a pleasure having you on. For sure, we will do this again. For those out there watching in the YouTube, Facebook land, check out We Live on a Planet, and I believe you are on all of them. Spotify, iTunes,
I'm everywhere.
Anchor.
I'm excited. I'm thankful for that.
And also, check out
my website. My website,
you're doing the giveaway.
WLOAP.com. And I'm having a giveaway, and I'm going to be doing a drawing very shortly. Right. All you have to do is subscribe. And I don't blast people up with a bunch of stuff. All you would do is get an email when a new episode comes out of We Live on a Planet. But once you subscribe, it's a value of over $50 of what I'm giving away. And it's burning a hole in my pocket to give it away too. I want to so much. Giving away things feels good. It feels good to give away things.
Yes, especially if it's for if the cause is right. You know what I mean? I think it's a good mindset to be in as far as what we're doing. So anyway, that, my friends, is a wrap. Tomorrow evening there will be a show because the bike club that I'm with canceled all the club rides. So we will be live tomorrow at 8:00 p.m. and I have no idea.
Down the rabbit hole you will go.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. Yeah, free. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Listen to this, too. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Check out anchor.fm today. You can find me at anchor.fm/WLOAP. Hope to hear from you. All right. Well, what'd you think? That was a lot of fun. No worries about the dog barking in the background. And then I had to, my producer had to screw around a little bit with our sound effect board and get a dog barking just to kind of play. So don't edit your life if you can. And we talked a little bit about the car accident I was in, and then how we thought maybe the world would be a little bit different with no shaking hands. And I'm on that kick lately, been using that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I want to share a couple numbers with you that I think are important. So if you have a pen and paper, grab it. I'll also put them in the show notes. First number is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That's 1-800-273-8255. Once again, 273 8255. That's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The next number I want to share with you is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services line. That's 1-800-662-4357. 1-800-662-4357. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. I'm awful happy I did. I'm sure Josh is glad he got himself help. And if you're struggling with any kind of substance abuse or addiction, there is help for you. And if you're struggling any type of mental health needs, and these are uncertain times right now. There's a lot of people that are going to be struggling with mental health problems, maybe that you've never had this type of depression, because what we're going through right now is almost kind of a mourning, because it's very just uncertain times, and it's upheavaled our daily lifestyles, this pandemic has. And we're going to get through it, though. We're going to get through it together, because this is a common enemy that we're fighting. You have to stay home. You have to stay healthy and stay safe and do the social distancing. Just do what we need to do to keep ourselves safe, so it doesn't become a hot spot in your city you're living in. Here I am in New York, and New York we've got how many thousands and thousands and thousands of cases here in this state of New York. And I'm about 5.5 hours away from New York City, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be here. As you heard me say the other day, we've have confirmed cases in the city of Oswego, and the city of Oswego is only 18,000. So that puts it in perspective too, knowing how small my city is, knowing, wow, am I brushing up against somebody? So you always have to keep the social distancing and assume that everybody has it for now. Don't discriminate against anybody, not in that sense, but universal precautions for yourself. Just kind of act like everything's a hot spot that you touch. If you have to be a germaphobe for the next month and a half, do it. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to some changes. I do think there's going to be a change in those snot guards, those plastic snot guards that are on buffets and stuff. They're already starting to build those in stores at checkout counters and stuff. And so we're going to have that barrier, that plexiglass barrier in between us. And I think they're going to be here to stay. And that's going to be the new norm. And we're going to be like, remember when you didn't have these plexiglass screens in front of you, making this barrier? Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that, but I think that might happen. Okay, before we end the show, I want to remind you that I still am running my giveaway over at WLOAP.com. That's also how you can reach me to be a part of the show. I only need 10 more subscribers to do the drawing. So if you haven't subscribed to my website, what are you waiting for? You can win something worth over $50 worth of value. It's not just one prize. It's a bunch of prizes in a box. I'm all ready to ship it out. I just need to fill out who's going to be the lucky winner. It could be you. It's really easy. All you have to do is subscribe. No strings attached. You will get from subscribing. This is what subscribing entails. You will get an email Monday morning and Friday morning to let you know a new show is out. That's it. Other than that, I don't bother anybody. I don't email you with anything. I don't sell your email or nothing. So, yeah, the bomb has been planted. Think about it. Use that little brain or mental brain dart throughout the day and be like, oh, that's right, I haven't subscribed yet. He threw that little mental dart into my brain. I'm supposed to remember. Hopefully you do. So stick around for Friday's show. I'll be doing show Friday, obviously. And then also on April 8th will be Radio Mylar with Oh, What a Glorious Morning. That is already recorded. And then April 15th will be Reish from Medicine Remixed. Great podcast that I really enjoy. April 22nd will be with Eddie Green. Eddie Green's 101, already in the can and recorded. I have just been a guest on Eddie Green's 101. You can find Eddie Green's 101 podcast anywhere podcasts are found. And I was a guest on his podcast. And so his most recent episode that's out right now, I believe it's episode 49. I am his guest, and that's something I would appreciate if you check out. Eddie and I had so much fun. Eddie was a fun guy. And I also have April 29th, Andy Palmer, director Andy Palmer of Funhouse Massacre and Camp Colebrook is going to be a guest here on the show. I'm also having a recording with Kat O'Keefe, Nautilus Award-winning author, about dreams. She will be a guest on the show May 6th. And then I'm also recording with Pedro Pena from My Stuttering Life. He has a great podcast and has overcome all kinds of obstacles in his life and has become a public speaker and everything, and it's pretty groovy. We're also going to be talking with Hugo Torres from Hugo's Posts. He's been a guest on the show before, and we're going to have him on again. And then I've also told you I'm going to be talking with my little brother, Steven, about our journey in rehab and overcoming addiction. So yeah, I've got a lot of stuff is on the burner and in the oven for We Live on a Planet, hopefully enough to keep you entertained for a little bit. If you have an interesting story and you want to be a part of the show, please reach out to me, WLOAP.com. Leave me a voicemail or an email. Or if you're using the Anchor app, you know how to do it. All right, my friends, tell a friend about We Live on a Planet and do your best today to stay curious and not judgmental the best you can. And try not to be normal either. All right, my friends, peace.